Saying yes to love. Don't you love relationships? I mean, we seek them out all the time, trying to be close to people and trying to love people. In this video this morning, you see a young couple that find each other, that find this passion, this love for each other, and then really shows tribute to a whole family, this whole history of people that brought them to this place and this time so that they could say yes to each other and really start the whole thing over again. And in years to come, they'll be the ones that'll be holding the pictures in the video, you know, and the generations of family that they've created just by saying yes to love. I want to make sure this morning before we leave that we know really what love is, that maybe we just take a step back for a moment and we look at how the world and what they call love, and some of it's all true, some of it goes both ways, but sometimes it's distorted. Maybe sometimes we get it a little wrong, and then we implement what they call love into our life, and we think that that really is love, and then we find out that we're heartbroken at the end, you know? And so, do you remember the very first time that you asked somebody to say yes to love? I can remember it. I can remember like it was yesterday. And you can say, oh, he's going to tell another story about Christy, you know, my wife. And no, I'm not. I was in kindergarten, and there was this little girl across the street, you know, and she was the most beautiful girl that I had ever seen in my life. I think it was just because she was my age. And so I can remember getting home from school. I can remember all, you know, whatever. When she was playing on Sunrise Circle, that's where I lived, I wanted to be outside, you know. And do you remember the first time that you actually drew out a complete box, two of them, and one said yes, and then the other one said no, and you didn't have enough guts, you know, to come up and say, will you love me? But you had to put it in a box form. And you had to say, will you check one of them for me? And that way, if you check no, my heart will be let down easier than if you just said it to my face, like, man, you are ugly, and you stink, and I wouldn't date you, you know? And so, today we do it by text, I think, more than drawing out the box. You know, you just text and say, hey, you know, do you love me? And you can just say yes or no. And then if they say no, you don't have to text them ever again. Do you remember the first time that you said yes to love? Really yes, though, not just joking. Because you, in whatever relationship it was, you just fell in love and you just thought, I want to be with that person. Sometimes it's just for a moment, and then sometimes maybe it's for eternity. I don't know. But you have that feeling inside. I think it's kind of like, I don't know why, but for some reason the other day I found that we had DVR'd The Bachelorette. I think it's a waste of tape for some reason, you know, or of recording space. But it was there, and let me just tell you, we watched it. You know, and it's a really good show because I think it's just a whole show about somebody trying to find love. One girl, 25 guys. This is something sounds wrong about it, but anyway, one girl, 25 guys, wonderful men that they picked from all over the country, and all she wants for them to do is say yes to love. And it's amazing to me that all 25 guys, except one this season, I guess, but all 25 guys will say yes. I mean, all 25 guys are so desperate in their life that they go to a TV show, they find this one woman because, you know, they find her attractive way before. I mean, they showed her the girl, you know, yeah, man, if that's the girl I get, I'll go out with that girl. You know, and so, of course, they're all fighting for her love and her affection. And so, you know, only about 5, 6, or 7 of them will actually get in the hot tub. You know, but that was supposed to be kind of a joke, but they'll only make it that far. But then other ones, you know, will make it all the way to the end, to the last rose ceremony. And they'll get to decide whether or not they're going to give a ring or they're going to, you know, fly off back to Seattle or wherever they live and never see each other again. For some reason, I felt like when I was in my living room watching this, I had to tell my middle school daughter, hey, you know this isn't how love works, right? And she goes, I know, Dad. I know this isn't how it works. I said, well, I just want you to make sure you just know that this isn't how it works. You don't go pick out 25 guys and narrow them down and date them all at the same time and be in the hot tub with 2 or 3. And this isn't how love works. So don't say yes to that, because that's not what I think. This is my 2 cents. Kelly Ogle. My 2 cents. I just don't know if that's really what love is. I think we find ourselves sometimes enjoying the passion. I think we enjoy sometimes the pursuit of love. I think sometimes that we're so I don't want to use the word desperate because that sounds like the wrong word at the time, but we desire so bad to be in a relationship. Is that a better sounding? That we're willing to do whatever it takes to say yes to love. Even to the point that we will put ourselves on a show and let the world see it play out and really take what love is and make it something that it really is not. It scares me, to be honest with you. I am a youth pastor at heart. I did it for 13 years, full time, and I just love young people. I'm probably too old now to yes, people are laughing in the room. I'm probably too old now to even relate. I probably don't know what the lingo is. I know I don't know what's cool or what's not cool or what somebody should wear or not wear. I'm just totally out of the loop. Except for this. I really think sometimes that young people try to find love and they search so hard and then they go through so many different relationships, almost kind of like The Bachelorette. I got this choice and I've got this choice and I've got this choice and it didn't work out, and so I'll just go choose this one, and this one likes me and they're showing me affection, and so I'm going to choose that one. I say yes to love. Yeah, I'm going to say yes to love. I'm going to say yes to love. I'm going to say yes to love. And what saddens me is this, is that at some point in our lives, saying yes to love just doesn't mean anything anymore. It just means yes to another relationship and another relationship and another relationship. And so when we enter into those, I don't know that they're as meaningful as what they were from the beginning. You remember your first box, right? I mean, you remember because you were so excited that you got to draw the box out and that your friend was taking the note over and they were going to bring it back, and you're sitting there and you say, please say yes to love. But your 23rd box or 24th box, you're like, they're not back yet? I mean, really. It was just like right across the room. All they got to do is come back. If they don't want me, I don't want them. And so after a while, seems like love is a little tarnished. I used to tell the young people in my youth group, when you date, you are looking for a spouse. And they're like, whoa. I'm going to the movies. We're not talking about marriage or anything else. I said, no, you don't understand. The reason that you're trying to get into a relationship with somebody is to see if you're compatible. The reason that you're trying to love somebody the way that you do is to see if that relationship will work out in such a way that you could spend the rest of your life with them. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but that is not what I'm talking about. But see, I just look at it a little different. We live in a society today where marriages don't mean the same thing that they did in the past. There used to be cultures where people would not separate in a marriage just because they didn't want to be shamed, or they didn't want people to know that they were separating because it was a bad thing. And so people would live, maybe even unhappily, I don't know, together just because they didn't want people to know that there was stress or whatever in that relationship. Today we quit. We quit a lot of times. Now let me just back up, and I understand that if I'm talking to a crowd today of 100 people, that there's probably a lot of us in here that have been separated or divorced or relationships didn't work out. I understand that completely, and I am not here today to stand up on a soapbox and say, you're a quitter. That's not what I said. Because sometimes relationships don't work out because somebody chooses not to love. But I think a lot of times we quit. We quit way too soon. Let me show you today 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. Here's what it says. It says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." See, sometimes we take love and we take it for what we think it is. Love is me. Love is what I give you. Love is a feeling that I have. Love is a box that's checked yes. But truly, love is God. And you start looking at the attributes of God, you start looking at truly what God is. I just look at ourselves and say, man, sometimes we fall short of showing or giving or participating in love in the relationships that we have. Here's the reason I know that. Because a lot of times when we're in a relationship, it's not a godly attribute that comes out. You cheated me, I'm going to cheat you. You messed me around, I'm going to mess you around. You didn't do what I asked you to do, then there's going to be consequences for that. You get the gist of what I'm saying? It's because that inside we have this expectation of people, and if they don't meet our expectation, they don't do what we want them to do, if it doesn't go the way we want it to go, then all of a sudden the flesh inside of us, the people that we are, it starts to dwell up. And you have to choose that you either get us that dwells up, or you get God that dwells up in our lives. So when we say the relationship is over, no more, this is finished, and we walk out, in some instances it was necessary. I understand. In some instances you had no choice. But then in other instances we do have choices. Instead of us being upset and mad and angry and fighting tooth and nail, we can show the love of God. Because did we not accept God into our hearts when we came into this place? We worship Him. There's a time in our lives where everybody decides that, yes or no. I check yes, I love God. And then what happens is we have to decide whether or not we are going to stay the same or we are going to change. Remember, God is love. I am not. Remember, God is love. You are not. That's the reason that we go on TV shows and we pick out 25 guys and we show the type of love that we have. That's the reason that we date multiple people. That's the reason that we have affairs in our marriages. That's the reason that we talk back to our spouses. That's the reason that in high school we can date multiple. That's because that's us. But God is love. And so if God is love, that means there has to be a change that comes with inside of our lives when we ask Him in there. So now, in my relationship that I have with my wife, with my children, with you, my response cannot be bitterness and anger and disappointment and all of those other things. My response to those relationships need to be godly responses. Why? Because I have changed inside. Because when I said yes to love, when I said yes to God, then my responses change. If you look in James chapter 1, To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. That's how it starts. And then it starts talking about that you might fall into diverse temptations. Count it all joy when you fall into trials of many kinds, one version says. Because the testing of your faith, you going through hard times, you going through difficult situations, brings forth perseverance in your life. And that perseverance will do what? It'll mature you. See, sometimes we've got a great excuse of doing the things that we do is because we're not mature in our Christian walk. Sometimes we've not developed a relationship that is deep enough or not been in a relationship long enough that maybe that we know truly what God is or who God is. And so sometimes maybe that is hard for us to show love. But then there's a point that we have to decide that through all of this persevering, all of this junk that we go through, that maybe we're causing that ourselves. Maybe our lives do not have to be the way that they are. If we said yes to love, if we allowed God in and we responded the way that God would respond and we would show love to people the way that God desires for us to show love, then maybe the response that we get back from life will be totally different than the response that we get. Think about it for just a second. If you show love in your relationship like God would show, do you think the response of those people in the relationship that you have would be the same response that you have now? I say no to that one. Because people have a hard time responding in a hateful way or a mean manner to somebody that is just showing love to them all the time. You want to scream at me? You scream. But I want to tell you, I love you anyway. You want to be that way? You can be that way. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going to stand with God and I'm going to love you anyway. I don't know. It must be important because it says right here that God is love. And there's a reason that He's showing this to us today. Let me just say, though, if you haven't said yes to love and you don't have that in your heart, then you don't have God either. That didn't make sense, did it? If you don't have love in your heart, you don't have God either. So if you are showing that attitude, if you're continually being that person, not showing love, don't fool yourself about the relationship that you have with God, because you don't have one. Because God is love. I want to ask you this morning, do you know that He said yes to you? God. Do you know that He first fell in love with you? Just the way that you are, just the way that you look. He fell in love with you that way. Because He knew that over a period of time you would mature, and over a period of time your life would take a turn and it would change. So He chose you so that your life would be amazing. Did you see all the family members that were on the video screen just a few moments ago? You could step back and you could say, I wish my relationships were like that. And to think about it, what I do now will influence generations to come and what they'll be. Several of you in the room did not come from homes that your parents took you to church like every Sunday, you know? You might have been a family that you had a friend that went and you just caught a ride. And you were just lucky enough that you just got enough of God that you decided in your family that when you got an opportunity to have one, that you were just going to say yes to love, and God was going to be right in the middle of it. Maybe you haven't started very long ago. Maybe you've only been with God for just a few years. Maybe this is the first time you've said yes to love. And so, you don't get everything right all the time. I mean, none of us do, right? But you're trying to mature, and as you go through all of these things in life, you're trying to get it right. That's what God wants. You don't have to look like a certain thing or a certain individual, a certain person, but you do need to strive to look like God. And you do need to say yes to love and no to all the things that are opposite of that. So, you saying yes to love today, I guess, influences generations to come. And your children and your children's children, their children, might just say yes to love because of you saying that in a room like this today. God, let me make the right decision all the time when it comes to love. Don't let me be bitter. Don't let me hold grudges. Don't let me respond in a way that is negative. Don't let it happen today, God, because I don't want my children or their children to have to struggle and go through the same things that maybe I had to go through. Shelter their lives. Surround them, God, and shelter their lives so they don't see the bad and the evil and all of those things. God, make their relationship look like you. If you cannot pray, listen to me this morning. If you cannot pray in the relationship that you're in, whether that be with your best friend, that be with your spouse, that be with your kids, something's wrong today. Because God is love. And if you can't say yes to that, if you can't say, hey, when we're going through this problem or this situation, if we can't stop immediately and say, hey, we've got to consult God about this, then something's wrong. If you say it's just uncomfortable for me. It's just uncomfortable for me. It's your life. Why is it uncomfortable for you? You choose that. You choose yes or you choose no. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable if you lead it. If you allow God in. Let me just say, this is part of the maturity. You go through persevering times, but they're going to continue to be persevering if you don't change something about them. If you don't mature in Christ to get to the point where you say, yes, God, you're here. I'm here. I love. We're going to show love. We're going to pray together. We're going to count that you do the right thing in our lives. You've never failed us before. I got to stop, but I'm just saying today, a lot of our families just quit. And we say, we're not going to pray about it. We're going to close our eyes. It's never happened. We're going to switch relationships. Surely it'll change. There's something different. We find any other way besides God. And God's saying it is so easy because I am love. I am here to make it right. I am here to help you through. All you got to do is say yes. Just yes. Yes to love. Just say yes. Just say yes to love. God, I love you because you love me. Today in this place, I want you to say one word to Him. Only one. That's all you have to say. He'll know exactly what you mean. When you close your eyes for just a moment of time with Him alone, when you just whisper the word, Yes. Yes.